Possibly the best paint I've ever worked on. It's just incredibly thick and incredibly strong. I can polish for days. I use an analogy, and if you were a chef and you just love making food and doing all that stuff, if you get the best ingredients, it seems like the dish that you make is so much more tasty, you know what I mean?
That's car detailer Larry Kosilla fawning over the Koenigsegg CC850's paint job. The $3.7 million Hypercar is brand new, and only 70 of them were made. Larry's car care shop, Ammo NYC, recently got the opportunity to detail the outlandishly expensive vehicle for its upcoming tour of car shows. Here's what caring for a car this expensive involves.
First thing when it comes in, you want to do an inspection just to get a feel for what we're talking about. In this case, obviously, it's such a spectacular car that it's not a real a hurdle for me, because I just want to get familiar with the vehicle. I wouldn't say it's a fresh, brand new car. It's been driven, moved around, let's call it, a bunch. There's definitely some rocks and things, which is 100% normal with supercars or hypercars in this instance, because of the louvers and the canards and all the other aerodynamics that are on these supercars. This one was not really a big deal. It was more of taking it from, let's call it 98% to 100%. Second thing, of course, is to give it a decent rinse. And during that rinse process, you saw in the video, as I'm rinsing, I'm also taking notice. I'm looking at the paint. I'm not just sort of aimlessly saying like, wow, this is fun. There's a mentality of, hey, what's going on? Is there something on the surface of this already? Meaning, did they spray wax it beforehand? Did they spray seal it before? What that means is when I go later on, 5 steps later on, I know that, hey, when I was power washing, I could tell that it was reacting differently, which means when I go to polish with, let's say, a polishing pad, when I go to polish this later on, I know that potentially could react differently than it normally would.
After a successful foam power washing, Ammo NYC thoroughly dried the exterior with compressed air and microfiber towels. Then it was time to polish the vehicle to brighten up all 25 coats of paint that a CC850 receives.
So once it's dry, then we get into the measuring of the paint. And in that particular case, my meter was just going absolutely nuts. I have a meter here that basically tells me, how deep the paint is, how thick it is. And it's in, 10,000ths of an inch. And I can measure, hey, how much am I potentially going to take off? Like on a car like the one behind me here, it basically has next to no paint because one, it's older, it's single stage paint. If I go to polish that one, it's going to be far different approach than if I were to do something like the Koenigsegg, of course. Possibly the best paint I've ever worked on. It's just incredibly thick and incredibly strong. I can polish for days. After that, then I'll go in and put some sort of protection on. In this case, I put Reflex Pro, which is a coating, which is a longer term protection. So if it does get cleaned in the future, that's all it needs is just a power wash, use compressed air, and you're good to go. The goal with these cars, as weird as it sounds, is to not touch it. You wash it with as much lubrication when it's necessary, meaning if it's not dirty, don't wash it. And you wipe it, if you're wiping out a show, with as much lubrication as possible. Otherwise, leave it alone, because even the faintest little slight scratch, that means something, as opposed to something, a $5,000 car, it's going to scratch. You're like, yeah, whatever, I parked in the parking lot. $3 million car? That's a $100,000 scratch.
Then a super light layer of tire shine was applied, being sensitive to the car's expensive carbon ceramic brakes, but making sure even the smaller details stood out.
And then at the end, I put the thing called blush. We call it blush. I put this blush on the car just to kind of spruce it up. It doesn't last very long. I call it like if Reflex Pro or the coating is the suit that you put on before you go out to the big party or whatever and you look good. Blush is the flower that you put in your suit.
Larry and his team also spent time paying careful attention to the interior. Everything in the cockpit, from the stitching along the seats to blemishes on the seatbelts, got scrubbed down. The removable floor mats were vacuumed, cleaned with leather and vinyl cleaner, and finally steam vacuumed. The dashboard only required wiping away a light layer of dust and fingerprints from people poking and prodding on the buttons. Last but not least, Larry wiped down the Hypercar's enormous wraparound windshield, along with its comically tiny rear window. Whatever the task, one thing is clear when it comes to detailing a hypercar. The stakes are high, and caution is key.
It's the same mentality. I just say, the mistakes that you make are just, you either lose a couple $100 or you lose a house, you know? So there's a difference between the mistakes. So we're not doctors or whatever, but I like that mentality where it's like, there's no margin for error. And I think if you go into it that way, you have a higher success rate. On a supercar, I will say there's usually things that can go wrong easier, meaning like very sensitive little things that are sticking up, like side mirrors that like barely are on because they're so beautiful or whatever. So if you were to catch that with a pad, you know, boom, it'll fly off. Those are the things that you would need to be careful of, but the mentality isn't like, oh my gosh, I have to detail this car today. It's more like, all right, guys, when we're doing our inspection that I mentioned before, heads up, this is like a little bit of a sensitive area here, but other than that, it's the same process. You probably enjoy it a little bit more. That's all.